And once again, I want to say greetings to each and every one of you, Aquaba, and welcome to another round of the Conscious Wrestler Report here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, here on livinginblack.com. My name is Kedia White, aka the Conscious Wrestler. Weekday mornings, you and I get together live from 9 a.m. Pacific Time. That's 12 noon Eastern Time, 5 p.m. BST, and 8 p.m. East Africa time. We get together with you and we deal with culture, consciousness, historical perspectives. We deal with entertainment, economics, education, health, labor, law, politics, religion, family, conflict, future studies, all areas of human interactivity and development. Today's date is Tuesday. It is the 26th day of August, Black August, as we call it around here. And it is Tuesday, the year 2025 in the Gregorian calendar, the Western calendar. This corresponds to the year 6266 in the Kemetic calendar, to which we have realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the seventh millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, here on livinginblack.com. What an honor, what a pleasure it is to be with you today. And I hope you are in good spirits. I actually feel pretty good today. I want to put this into context. I want you to put on a special set of glasses today. This special set of glasses is actually built into your brain. It's called the prefrontal cortex. Now, just briefly, before I introduce the show, the prefrontal cortex is the organic part of your brain that makes executive decisions, executing decisions. I want you to look over the horizon. It's also the part of the brain that is able to predict the long-term consequences of our short-term actions. Long-term consequences, short-term actions. So that's the glass. Those are the goggles, the glasses you are wearing today. That's the part of the brain I intend to activate with today's conversation. Here is what we are here to talk about. Today on LIB Radio, we ask the question, how much is a life worth? I might ask, how much is your life worth? Today on LIBradio.com, we do our best to put a dollar value on differing aspects of our healthy life. What is the ultimate cost of metabolic disease, cancer, pulmonary or cardiovascular disease? How much are we willing to invest today to prevent these disorders from disrupting our lives or causing premature death, debilitation, as well as bankruptcy to the average family? Where is our money going? It's a very serious topic today. I want you to take it seriously, because I'm going to give you a breakdown on some of the leading diseases that are happening out here. And we're going to look at those diseases and ask the question, is my money going to the right side of this disease? Prevention, if nothing else, delay, because we are seeing these diseases happening in people of younger and younger ages. That is true. Let's look first at diabetes. And there are over 22 chronic diseases that have become common. This is what I addressed in this book, which came out in December 2024, the book called Living Superfood Solutions. So first of all, we have to acknowledge that these 22 plus chronic diseases do exist. They are real. The numbers are real. The doctors are taking you and I, not me, they're taking you to the bank. They're taking you to the bank. You're paying for their luxury cars or luxury lifestyle, their luxury homes. If you want to pay for theirs, I would say give it out of charity. But don't give it out of your being disabled, enabling these people. That's just not right. Diabetes. Let's begin with diabetes. I asked the question of an AI search engine today, and I asked a whole lot of questions today. What is the average 10-year cost of a diabetes diagnosis? Detail it and try and keep it to 200 words. Here's what it had to say. Diabetes, 10-year cost. The average annual medical expenditure for a person diagnosed with diabetes in the United States is $19,736. That was the average annual, with approximately $12,022 of that amount attributed directly to diabetes. This represents a 2.6-fold increase compared to the expected medical cost for someone without diabetes. Over a 10-year period, the average cost of a diabetes diagnosis would therefore be approximately $197,360, calculated by multiplying the annual cost by 10. This figure includes both direct medical costs, such as hospitalizations, physician's visits, prescription medications, and diabetes supplies, and indirect costs related to loss, productivity, disability, and premature death. The direct medical costs alone were estimated at $306.6 billion in 2022. That's just for the U.S., accounting for 61% of the total diabetes-related healthcare spending in the U.S. The cost of insulin and other glucose-lowering medications has significantly increased, tripling over the past decade. Tripling over the past decade to $22.3 billion in 2022, and rising 26% in inflation-adjusted terms from 2017 to 2022. 26%, rising 26% in 5 years. Less than 5 years. Or in 5 years. The total economic burden of diabetes in 2022 was $412.9 billion, with people with diabetes accounting for 1 in 4 health care dollars spent in the United States. These costs are not evenly distributed, with Black Americans with diabetes incurring the highest direct health care expenditures, and individuals aged 65 and older spending roughly double the per capita annual health care costs compared to other groups. The estimation of annual health care costs for adults with diabetes type 1 disease in the U.S., this reference to that came from PMC, and it said briefly, in comparison, the total cost to the payer of a type 2 diabetes was estimated to be $14,148 per person per year. 41%, $5,845 of which were costs not directly to the management of diabetes. Mean total population costs per person per year were significantly higher for patients with type 1 diabetes compared with type 2 diabetes. And there's a number of references I have for this. Economic costs of diabetes in the U.S. from PubMed, January 1st, 2024. They said briefly, for costs categories analyzed, care for people diagnosed with diabetes accounts for 1 in 4 health care dollars in the U.S. 61% were attributable to diabetes. On average, people with diabetes incur annual medical expenditures of $19,736, of which approximately $12,022 is attributable directly to the diagnosis. Let's take a deep breath. I hope you understand what I just read. And I hope that you have a plan for avoiding this diagnosis in your life. Over course of 10 years, a diabetes, full-blown diabetes diagnosis, type 2 or adult onset diabetes mellitus, is over $197,000. $197,000. What if for less than $5,000, what if for less than $5,000 you came and stayed at my house for 2 weeks? And what if during that 2-week period, actually on the 9th day, that your diabetes A1C levels were normalized, had declined to where it was normal, and then from there you have to maintain it. You cannot go back to your old behaviors. Cannot walk around talking about, ooh, I got a sweet tooth. No, that ain't happening. Never again. Not in your life. Not if you're over your type 2 diabetes. What if your insulin sensitivity could be turned on in just a couple of days by just the mere act of texting me or Terry, because she really kind of books the house as a healthy, wealthy place of retreat. It's a beautiful house we have here. Your food is all taken care of. There will be classes. I will be teaching you how to maintain that low fasting A1C. Let's go to the next disease, next disorder. Again, does everyone understand? And I know it's a hard dialogue. It's a really hard dialogue. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to listen. And you don't want to hear it. But I tell you, what I'm saying, I know this because I study this every day. I'm not the only one out here reversing or helping people to reverse. Let me get the language correct. I'm not the only one out here helping two people to reverse their diabetes. No. Dr. Gabriel Cousens has a book out. There is a cure for diabetes, among many books he has out. So that's number one on this list. Can somebody say hello? Somebody hit the like button for today's video. I see one other person in the Rumble has hit the like button, but I don't have a clue of who you are because I need to read a message in the chat board for you to show up. I look forward to it. Let's go to the second of these diseases. Conclusion. The inflation-adjusted direct medical costs of diabetes were estimated to rise inflation from 7% from 2017 and 35% from 2012 calculations stated in 2022 dollars. Following decades of steady increasing prevalence of diabetes. The overall estimated The overall estimated prevalence in 2022 remains relatively stable in comparison to 2017. However, the absolute number of people with diabetes has grown and contributes to increased health care expenditures, particularly per capita spending on inpatient hospital stays and prescription medications. The enormous economic toll of diabetes continues to burden society through direct medical costs and indirect costs. Next disorder on the table is hypertension. Let's talk about it. Hypertension. The provided context. This is what I asked this question: what is the annual burden of hypertension in the U.S.? Explained in 2 words. They wrote back: the provided context does not contain specific data on the average 10-year cost of a hypertension diagnosis in the United States. However, it does provide information on annual healthcare expenditures related to hypertension, high blood pressure. Individuals with hypertension in the United States face nearly $2,000 higher annual healthcare expenditures compared to those without hypertension. $2,000, nearly $2,000, with an estimated $131 billion in adjusted annual incremental costs for patients with hypertensive population of 2003 to 2014. Unadjusted mean annual medical expenditure for patients with hypertension was $9,089 during that period. Earlier data from 2000 to 2013 show that per person annual expenditures associated with hypertension increased slightly from $1,399 to $1,494 adjusted to 2015 dollars, while national spending rose significantly from $58.7 billion to $109.1 billion due to the growing number of people being treated. So hypertension, we have different periods, different costs. It is always getting more expensive, and there are always more people being added to the family of people diagnosed with hypertension. Based on these annual figures, a rough estimate for the 10-year cost per individual could range from approximately $14,000 to $90,000, depending on whether incremental or total costs are considered. But no official 10-year average cost is reported in the context. Hypertension. We do know that hypertension is connected to other disorders such as chronic kidney failure. It's connected to atherosclerosis. It's connected to a bunch of different things, including stress-related diseases. Hypertension is directly connected to strokes, cardiovascular disease, ED. My question to you, hypertensive patient, and I know the fact is that most African Americans, I'm talking to black people today, others can listen in and learn. Most African Americans over the age of 50 to 60 could be diagnosed as hypertensive. I think right now maybe it is appropriate that I show you what my cuff said about 5 days ago when I took my hypertension measurement. My cuff read the following. Move this out of the way. My cuff told me my blood pressure was the following. And I'm going to show you the very window right here. And that window said 107 for systolic over 61 for dystolic. 107/61. Now, this is doing it like 10, 15 times in a row. It was never over 133. But this is the lowest of those readings doing my breathing exercises. Now, one's blood pressure can fluctuate quite dramatically day by day, even hour by hour, by the end of this radio program, because of the intensity with which I am putting my soul into every word. My blood pressure will be high. And then I will do my breathing exercises. Why would we not? Now, you can achieve this, but you got to want it. You got to want it more than just text me and say, hey, Keedy, how do you do that? Because I don't know how you got in this situation in the first place. First, I need to study your life and your lifestyle. If you're doing the obvious bad, then that's easy to correct, or easier, I might say. But some of you might be doing a bunch of things, but it still is out of control. So this is where the consultation comes in. For a consultation right now, I have it discounted to $250 for 1 hour. $250 versus a 10-year annual expenditure of approximately ranging from $14,000 to $90,000. I'm going to ask for a lot less than $14,000, a whole lot less than $90,000. $250. How much is your life worth? How much is a adult human life worth? Based on these annual figures, the average 10-year cost per individual could range from $14,000 to $90,000, depending on whether incremental value or total costs are considered. But no official 10-year average cost is reported in the context. There it is. Next, let's look at the C word, cancer. And I will admit I am still in mourning. I found out on Saturday one of my dearest friends died of kidney cancer. He never contacted me and told me he had the problem. He kept it to himself, and I guess just his wife knew. That's a terrible mistake. Men, we don't want to admit sometimes that we need help. But my friend, I love him dearly. I love him eternally. Imhotep Al-Kebalan, praise be your eternal name. He made a terrible mistake by keeping that from me, knowing, I think he knew, that I had just published a book called A Year Against Cancer, on cancer prevention, especially preventing cancer death. Cancer. The average 10-year cost of cancer diagnosis and care in the United States varies significantly, depending on the phase of care, cancer type, stage at diagnosis, and treatment intensity. There is no simple figure in the average 10-year cost per patient, but costs are significantly broken down into 3 phases: the initial first year after diagnosis, continuing, the period between the initial and end of life care, and the end of life, the year before death. Per patient, annualized average cancer attributable medical costs were estimated at $43,516 in the initial phase. $43,516. If you do not get a diagnosis of cancer, and according to right now, maybe a year and a half ago. 3 people of every 5 people would not get a cancer diagnosis. That means that 2 people of every 5 would get it. So 2 people in the initial year of that diagnosis, and my friend, from my understanding, he was diagnosed within the past year, but he also experienced his end of year. It was one might say, a quote, turbo cancer. So 2 people will spend on average $43,516 for their new cancer diagnosis in their lifetime. In the second period, $5,518 during the continuing phase. And in the last year of life, which in my case of my friend Imhotep Kevalan would have been $109,727 spent in the end of life phase. In 2020, US dollars. Over a 10-year period, a patient surviving beyond the initial phase and not entering end of life care should or would incur significantly higher costs during the first year, followed by lower costs in subsequent years. For example, a survivor with 1 year of initial care followed by 9 years of continuing care would face estimated medical costs of approximately $40,516 plus 9 times 5,518, and those two added together would be $93,178, not including prescription drugs or out-of-pocket expenses. $93,178. That is if you live for 10 years and not get that huge last year of life burden. Now, from my understanding, I thought the end of life burden for that last year, I thought it was about $60,000 per patient. I was off by almost half. The last year of life for someone diagnosed with cancer in the U.S. today is estimated at $109,727. You're not hearing me. Nobody's talking to me. No one's talking to me. You're not hearing me. Makes me want to holler, throw up both my hands, makes me want to say, throw the F-bomb right in the middle of a sentence. You're not hearing me. You don't know what I'm talking about. You can't follow the numbers. This is your life. I'm defending myself daily against all of these disorders. That's what I do. Can somebody just say, hey? Type in 3 letters, hey? I'm looking into YouTube. I'm not seeing a word. I'm looking at my Rumble page and I see I have an audience there. You're not speaking to me today. I'm just going to keep on going. I'm not going to blow my temper today. But boy, I really do not like being treated like this. Oral prescription drugs add to this burden with annualized averages of $1,874 in the initial phase, $1,041 in the continuing phase, and $4,372 in the end of life phase. That's just in prescription drugs, oral prescription drugs. Including these, the 10-year drug costs could total approximately $1,874 plus 9 times 1041 equals $11,243 just in oral prescription drugs for cancer diagnosis. Total patient out-of-pocket expenses across all phases and cancer types were substantial, with national out-of-pocket spending reaching $16.22 billion in 2019 alone. National out-of-pocket expenses. This is what the industry is withdrawing from your family's coffers. For individual patients, these costs depend heavily on insurance coverage, cancer type, and disease stage, with higher costs generally associated with advanced stage diagnoses and more intensive treatments. Cancer. $109,000, 727 in their last year, after which they give you back a body. They give your family your body, and they've extracted so much money, including what, 22,000? What was the out-of-pocket expense for that last year? $16.22 billion for the entire country. Next up is pulmonary disease. I can't breathe. Pulmonary disease. There is no specific data available on the average 10-year cost of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, diagnosis in the United States. However, now again, I was asking this of AI. However, in 2010, the total cost of COPD in the U.S. was projected to be $50 billion, including $30 billion in direct healthcare expenditures and $20 billion in indirect costs. Costs increase with disease severity, and hospitalizations account for the majority of expenses, particularly due to acute exacerbations. Direct costs are heavily influenced by the frequency of exacerbations and disease progression, with more severe stages requiring higher resource utilization. Given the progressive nature of COPD and rising trends and associated costs, the 10-year economic burden per patient is likely substantial, though precise longitudinal figures are not provided in the available sources. Well, then let's go to cardiovascular disease. CVD, the leading cause of death, premature death in the United States. Cardiovascular disease. The average 10-year cost of cardiovascular care for asymptomatic individuals in the United States was $23,142, based on data from the multi-ethnic study of atherosclerosis, clogged arteries, the MESA cohort. This cost encompassed cardiovascular disease medications, office visits, diagnostic procedures, coronary revascularization, meaning trying to repair your arteries, and hospitalizations, with the largest proportion, 78%, attributed to medication use. Costs varied significantly by risk level, ranging from less than $7,700 for low-risk individuals to over $35,800 for high-risk individuals. So the average 10-year cost of CVD care was $23,142. That's $2,300 per annum. And cardiovascular disease is so easy to prevent. The same thing that prevents cardiovascular disease also will prevent hypertension and strokes. To me, to me, this is a no-brainer. But others apparently find this far more confusing. I see you in the house, Nguvu, and thank you, Nguvu. You saved the program for today for everybody. He says, Sawubona, which means I see you. He says, I hear you. Went through this with my family. Didn't know what I know now. I would have made different choices. Thank you, Nguvu. I see you, my dear brother. And he said, I went through this with my family. It could have been a parent, grandparent, sibling, could have been himself. He says, I didn't know now. I didn't know what I know now. Would have made different choices. Yeah, you're right. Cardiovascular disease. $23,000 over the course of 10 years. And then many times, they give you a dead body at the end of it. I lost my father to cardiovascular disease. Can I get you, Nguvu, to hit the like button? Everybody, please do. We are continuing. We are asking today, what is a life worth? How much is a life worth? Can we put a dollar figure on a human life? For this study, I had to do the best I could to put a dollar figure not on someone's life, but on someone's disorder. Personally, I think that life is worth much more than disease and disorder. But obviously, people disagree with me. Whatever. We're going to keep going forward. And I just want to one time turn on my green screen button. Sorry about that. You could see a whole lot of green surrounding my head. It looked like a halo, like I was an Echo Justice angel. Thank you, Nguvu. I appreciate you, man. Going forward, we're asking the question, how much is a life worth? You might hear it as, how much is your life, my life worth? Let's go to, we just finished cardiovascular disease. Let's go to kidney disease. I just lost my friend of kidney cancer. So that was not only kidney disease, but it was also cancer. The average 10-year cost of kidney disease diagnosis and management in the United States varies significantly based on the stage of chronic kidney disease, CKD, and whether it progresses to end-stage kidney disease, ESKD, or what would be called chronic kidney failure. For Medicare beneficiaries, annual per-person costs attributable to CKD increase with disease severity, reaching $12,700 for stage 4, adjusted to $2010. Now that's $12,720. Today, 15 years later, is undoubtedly more than double that. Extrapolating these figures, the cumulative cost over a decade for a patient processing through advanced stages would exceed $100,000, particularly if dialysis becomes necessary. Over $100,000, 10-year diagnosis with chronic kidney disease. For patients who reached end-stage kidney disease, costs rise substantially. In 2020, Medicare was spending $29 billion for hemodialysis and $2.8 billion for peritoneal dialysis, with dialysis accounting for nearly 80% of total medical expenses, Medicare expenses on end-stage kidney disease beneficiaries. Per person, per month, private insurers paid $10,000 $149 on outpatient dialysis compared to Medicare's $3,364. Over 10 years, dialysis treatment alone could cost approximately $400,000 let me repeat that sentence because I missed a key word. Over 10 years, dialysis treatment alone could cost between approximately $400,000 and $1.2 million per patient, depending on the modality, payer, and cost setting. Now, Nguvu, doesn't this explain why we're seeing all of these dialysis clinics opening up in the black neighborhood, along with fast food restaurants and junk food bodegas and all of this stuff that what we're exposed to? Chronic kidney disease, end-stage kidney disease requiring dialysis. Wow. For patients who reach end-stage kidney disease, between $400,000 and $1.2 million per patient, depending on the modality, the payer, and the care setting. Additionally, Medicare spending for beneficiaries aged 66 years or older with chronic kidney disease, excluding end-stage chronic kidney disease, totaled nearly $77 billion in 2021, with annual per person spending more than double that of beneficiaries without chronic kidney disease. So 77 billion more spent on people with chronic kidney disease compared to people without chronic kidney disease. And that is $28,162 per person for people with chronic kidney disease versus $13,604 for the rest of us per capita. Given the progressive nature of chronic kidney disease, and that again accounts to $15,000, nearly $15,000 higher if you have chronic kidney disease. Given the progressive nature of chronic kidney disease and associated comorbidities, long-term costs are driven not only by kidney-specific data or kidney-specific care, but also by cardiovascular complications and hospitalizations. Therefore, the average 10-year cost of kidney disease, especially when progressing to end-stage kidney disease, represents a substantial economic burden on both public and private payers. Like you, Nguvu, until doing this study, I wasn't aware of this. Until this study, my understanding of all of these expenses was quite inadequate. I agree. I thought that the average cancer patient in the last year of their life, I personally thought that it was $60,000. No, I was off by almost half. It actually amounts to closer to $110,000, not 60. That's what they get out of the patient. And then they give you, the family, back a body. Then, of course, you have the mortuary expenses, which you were going to have anyways. Even if the person died of natural causes, all of us will have mortuary expenses. And the thing is this. Of the audience that I have today, 4 of you, this is on Rumble, with 10 people registered listening, and why the audience is so small, I don't know. Obviously, some people can't listen in real time like the Sunday show. So some people will come back and catch it later. And that's a lot of people. But of 10 of you, 4 of you will be diagnosed with cancer. Of the 10 of you listening, 8 of you will be diagnosed with hypertension. Of the 10 of you listening, I believe it's 2 of you, and I could be wrong, will be diagnosed with hyperglycemia in your lifetime. And you will be spending a whole crap load. I don't cuss. You will be spending a whole crap load of money on such a diagnosis. Why would you not? You explain to me, why would you not invest a small percentage of that up front to prevent this diagnosis? Why would you not? Why would you not tune into LIB Radio every day when I put forward a health science and tell you what the expenses are, to tell you how to prevent and reverse these chronic diseases? I'm going to put in my text number. Text me, TEXT me, text me, if you intend to change your lifestyle and prevent these diseases and disorders to the best of our abilities. My text number is 702-580-0662. And please, 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 don't just text me and try and squeeze me to give this stuff away. You may or may not want to do the research that I do. I spent an hour today gathering stuff for today's program. So come on, be fair, be fair. Spread the love. Spread the love. It is a good thing that you and I would collaborate and cooperate to share the love. Today's conversation is called, How Much is a Life Worth? How much is your life worth? How much is my life worth? You have my text number, 702-580-0662. Do not call me, text me. I will call you back. If you call me and I don't answer, don't take it personally. That's just the way I run this machine. But I will text you right back. Let's go into a little bit more of this research I have up here. A lot more of this research. And there was a whole lot of different diseases and disorders that we didn't even go through. We could have done the same thing for the other metabolic diseases, abdominal, obesity, overweight obesity. I have done a cost of annual expenses for obesity before. I can't remember what that number was, but it came down to over a 10-year average. Might have come down to between somewhere on the very low end, it would have been about $28,000. But on the high end, When we're talking about overweight, obesity, depending on what disease or comorbidity it's related to. On the high end, if you're talking cancer, it might have been $400,000 or more. Let's pull up some of this research. I have an article up here. This is from Diabetes Care Research Journal. The economic cost of diabetes in the U.S. in 2022. Abstract. The objective. The study updates previous estimates of the economic burden of diagnosed diabetes with calculation of the health resource use and indirect costs attributable to diabetes in 2022. It talks about the design of the research and the methods. I'm going to skip that. The results. Let's go right to the results. The total estimated cost of diagnosed diabetes in the U.S. in 2022 is $412.9 billion, including $306.6 billion in direct medical costs and $106.3 billion in indirect costs attributable to diabetes. For cost categories analyzed, care for people diagnosed with diabetes accounts for 1 in 4 health care dollars in the U.S. 61% are attributable to diabetes. On average, people with diabetes incur annual medical expenditures of $19,736, of which approximately $12,022 is attributable to diabetes. People diagnosed with diabetes, on average, have medical expenditures 2.6 times higher than what would be expected without diabetes. On average, glucose lowering medications and diabetes supplies account for less than or approximately 17% of the total direct medical costs attributable to diabetes. Major contributors to indirect costs are reduced employment due to disability, $28.3 billion, presenteeism, $35.8 billion, and lost productivity due to 338,526 premature deaths, accounting for $32.4 billion US dollars. Conclusion: the inflation-adjusted direct medical costs of diabetes are estimated to rise 7% from 2017 and 35% from 2012 calculations stated in 2022 dollars. Following decades of steady increasing prevalence of diabetes, the overall estimated prevalence in 22 remains relatively stable in comparison to 2017. However, the absolute number of people with diabetes has grown and contributes to increased health care expenditures, particularly per capita spending on inpatient hospital stays and prescription medications. The enormous economic toll of diabetes continues to burden society through direct medical and indirect costs. So that article, again, entitled The Economic Costs of Diabetes in the United States. I'm going to post that up here so all of you can have access to that as well. Let me post that on the Rumble page. Let me post that on the YouTube page. And let me post that up on my Facebook page. And post it up twice on the Facebook page, as it is also under the caption of today's live broadcast. And waiting, and here it comes. And that one is right here on my Facebook page. So, next article I have up is I'm just going to just post just the link because it's going to be repetitive, but this is 1 year later. The next report, New American Diabetes Association report, finds annual costs of diabetes to be $412.9 billion in the United States. So I'm going to just post that one up and copy here. I'm going to post that one up here on Facebook. Post it up a second time. And also I'm going to paste it up for my Rumble family. Got you up here. Have to post this up twice because it will not all fit on one. And here, let me see if it'll fit on one. No, it won't fit on one on YouTube. I'm going to post this up here. Bear with me. Click here, go to the end, copy. I'm going to paste this up over here on Rumble. And I'm not going to do these for all of these. This is rather time consuming. I'm sure you can understand. And next article is the cost of care for people with chronic kidney disease. I'm going to share just a little bit of this article. Let me paste it up here first. And here's what it has to say. The cost of care for people with chronic kidney disease, written by Braden Mans et al. This article is dated April 4, 2019, from the Cancer Journal of Kidney Health, Canadian Journal of Kidney Health and Disease. Abstract. Background. As the adverse clinical outcome common in patients with chronic kidney disease, CKD, can be prevented or delayed, information on the cost of care across the spectrum of chronic kidney disease can inform investments in CKD care. I'm going to skip the origins. I'm going to skip the objectives of the study. I'm going to skip the design and the setting. And I'm going to skip the patients and the methods. I'm going to skip all of those. And here are the results. In 2019, in 200,019, oof, boy, these numbers. The Canadians are not using commas, so that's throwing me off. In 219,641 adults with chronic kidney disease, the mean unadjusted cumulative 1-year cost was Canadian $14,634 per patient, median of $3,672, meaning half above and half below. Costs were higher for those with more comorbidity, those with lower eGFR, I don't know what that means, and those with more severe albuminuria. The cost of kidney and cardiovascular care was Canadian $230, 1.6 of total costs, and 720 Canadian dollars, 4.9%, represented for the cohort overall. These costs increased substantially for patients with lower eGFR. And I'm just going to skip the rest of that. It's just a bunch of numbers at a certain point. Conclusion. We identified that patients with chronic kidney disease, even when not on dialysis at baseline, had high health care costs, more than twice the cost per person in Canada in 2015. With a graded association between severity of chronic kidney disease and cost. Our findings can inform current and future cost estimates across the spectrum of chronic kidney disease, including an estimate of potential savings that might result from interventions that slow or prevent kidney disease. Let me repeat, our findings can inform current and future cost estimates across the spectrum of chronic kidney disease, including an estimate of potential savings that might result from interventions that slow or prevent kidney disease. Savings from slowing or preventing chronic kidney disease. I hope you heard it. It was right there in your face. Let me paste this one. For those of you on Rumble, it's there, right there. It's in your face. Let me paste this up on my Facebook page. It's in your face. Let's go to the next article, and I'm going to wrap this up here shortly. Let me see how many people are responding. No one's talking to me. And Guvu did join me briefly and then kicked it to me, whereas I've done all of the posts since then. I'm not mad at you. I'm glad at you. But no one else is even saying anything. Did anyone else even hit the like button? One more person hit the like button, which means I know you're in the house. This next one is, again, I'm just going to share with you just the link. The medical costs of chronic kidney disease in Medicare population. And this would be, of course, the United States. Let me copy this, paste, all, cut, copy, and paste this one up as well. I'm not going to read this one because it's going to be somewhat redundant. This is from the Journal of the American Society of Nephrology. That's cancer disease, September 2013. So it's a little bit of an older article, but that's okay. We're going to take this research wherever we can find it and make the very best of it that we possibly can make of it. And personally, I think we're not doing too bad. The next article I have pulled up is entitled "The Clinic and Economic Burden of Chronic Obstructive Pulmonary Disease in the USA." This is written by Anthony J. Guarancio et al. The article is dated June 17, 2013, from the Clinical of Economic Outcomes Research. Abstract. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, is the third most common cause of death in the USA. In 2010, the cost of COPD in the USA was projected to be approximately US $50 billion, which includes $20 billion in indirect costs and $30 billion in direct healthcare expenditures. These costs can be expected to continue to rise with this progressive disease. Costs increase with increasing severity of disease, and hospital stays account for the majority of these costs. Patients are diagnosed with COPD following a multifactorial assessment that includes spirometry, clinical presentation, symptomology, and risk factors. Smoking cessation interventions are the most influential factor in COPD management. The primary goal of chronic COPD management is stabilization of chronic disease and prevention of acute exacerbations. Bronchodilators are the mainstay of COPD therapy. Patients with few symptoms and low exacerbation risk should be treated with a short-term bronchodilator as needed for breathlessness. Progression or get rid of it, get rid of your inhaler. You can, but you got to understand what this disease is really about. It really is an autoimmune disease in most people. Patients with few symptoms and low exacerbation risk should be treated with a short-acting bronchodilator as needed for breathlessness. Progression of symptoms, as well as possible decline in forced expiratory volume in the first second of expiration, warranted the use of long-acting bronchodilators. For a patient with frequent exacerbations with or without consistent symptoms, inhaled corticosteroids should be considered in addition to a long-acting beta-2 agonist, LABA, or long-acting monoscarinic antagonist, LAMA, and never even consist of triple therapy, and may, not never, may even consist of triple therapy with all three agents with more severe disease. Phosphodiesterase 4 inhibitors may be an option in patients with frequent exacerbations and symptoms of chronic bronchitis, in addition to a variety of novel LAMAs, and combination bronchodilator and inhaled corticosteroid therapies. Other bronchodilators with a variety of mechanisms are being considered to expand therapeutic options for treatment of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. With more than 50 new medications in the pipeline for the treatment of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, optimal management will continue to evolve and grow more complex as benefits of therapy are balanced with the limitations and needs of each patient. But they said optimal management, meaning they want you for life. Optimal management means they want you to have their inhaler, their corticosteroids, these bronchodilators. They want you to be on them for life until the end of your life. I think that sucks. To be perfectly honest, I think it sucks. Let's pull this article up, and I'm going to put this up. The clinical and economic burden of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Copy that, paste that in the hyperlink. Copy and paste it here. And there it is. And not YouTube, for my Facebook family. One more time for the Facebook family, and I think I'm about done with today. Nobody's talking to me. Nobody except for you and Google. No one's. Oh, I see Kwame Reje. Kwame Reje just joined us. He's in the house. He just joined us at 10 minutes or 3 minutes after I was supposed to be finished. And I join you today, Kwame Reje. The theme, as you know, was how much is a life worth? And I went through a bunch of different diseases. We started with diabetes. We went through hypertension, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, cardiovascular disease, chronic kidney failure, and cancer. We went through all of these diseases, and we asked the question, what's the average 10-year cost of maintaining these disease symptoms? And I coulda, woulda, shoulda put in arthritis. Because here, let me do that real quickly, Brother Kwame Reje, because you correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Kwame Reje, you got rid of your arthritis using the stem cell therapy, the natural, holistic stem cell therapy, not the injections of your stem cells into your body, not the intervening, not the conventional medicine intervention. You did this naturally. So I'm going to ask this question, arthritis. The question is, what is the average 10-year cost of an arthritis diagnosis? Detail it all in 200 words. I'm going to put that up in my AI search engine. And it is cooking. And here's what it has to say. There is no single figure for the average 10-year cost of an arthritis diagnosis in the United States, as costs vary significantly depending on the type of arthritis, treatment plan, insurance coverage, and individual health factors. However, available data provide insights into annual costs that can be extrapolated. For osteoarthritis, OA, the most common form of arthritis, annual all-cause costs, including both direct medical and indirect costs like lost productivity, average $486.4 billion nationally between 2008 and 2014, with per person medical costs in the range of approximately $115,000. Now that is average per year. $115,000 in medical expenses alone, not accounting for inflation or potential increases in health care needs. For rheumatoid arthritis, costs are substantial. Patients may pay up to $30,000 annually for medications alone, with biologic drugs costing between $1,300 and $3,000 per month. Indirect costs such as lost wages and reduced productivity can add $1,500 to $22,000 per year. Even with Medicare, rheumatoid arthritis patients incur more than twice the annual healthcare costs compared to non-RA patients. Given these expenditures estimates, the 10-year cost, an individual with arthritis, particularly rheumatoid arthritis or advanced osteoarthritis, could range from tens of thousands to over $300,000, depending on treatment intensity and disease progression. Wow. Kwame Reggie, thank you for joining in. Because had you not joined in, I would not have been inspired to do that little bit of research. So let me first of all post this up. Arthritis, and then paste this here. And then Kwame had another comment, and his comment this is why your 56-day stem cell rejuvenation program is so important. And I completely agree with you, Kwame. It does work. And the cost of joining that 56-day program, wasn't it less than, I think it was less than $500. I know it was less than $500. I generally don't charge $500 for any of my contemporary programs. I had been considering doing a reboot. And I guess I should float it out here today. A reboot. What would be a reasonable cost for a reboot? We've been showing you today how you're going to save so much money. But how much are you willing to pay? If we started a reboot September 1st, it would be 21 day. 21 day. Your program you did with us, Brother Kwame, was 2 months. 56 days. The cost of a reboot, and part of the reason yours was so intensive is because this was the first time I had done this with a group. And I wanted to prove to everybody, this really does work. This is the real deal, Holyfield. So what would people pay for a reboot? I don't know. I do have a cost up, and I have the reboot link. I'm not ready to share it yet. But I will say, it sure is a whole lot cheaper than carrying these diseases year after year after year after year after year for 10 years in a row. Every one of these diseases, every one we mentioned today, costs far more than $100,000. Some of them cost more than $1.3 million per patient. With cancer, if you survived 10 years and died in that last year, they would give you back the body, before which, that last year of life, they would have taken $110 million out of your pockets for you giving them your body. For the last year, that's $110,000. and then they give you back the body to bury. To me, this is all a no-brainer. Kwame Reggie said, this is why your 56-day stem cell rejuvenation program is so important. And I think maybe, should I restore it? Let me ask you the question. Should I restart the 56-day stem cell? Bear with me. What's happening? Stop it. Stop jumping around. Should I restart 50 stem cell class or do the 21-day reboot? That's the question. I'm asking you, Kwame. I'll let you make the decision here. And he may say, just leave it alone. Just go do your other business. You need to go to Africa. You're supposed to be in Africa. Or he may say a suggestion of what to do. I am definitely open to suggestions. I'm going to put this up here as well on my Facebook page. Asking a question. If nobody responds, that means nobody is interested. No one. Nobody. And that's the frustrating thing. Why are we so complacent? Ed L. Mack is in the house. I see you, Brother Ed. Thank you for joining us. He writes, greetings. Who would have thunk it? I said that. Who would have thought it would cost so much to be sick? You're right, Ed. We don't really think about that, do we? Just looking at cancer, I had to severely update my data. And today we updated the data. The last year of cancer is $110,000 commitment. But I looked at cancer. We just looked at arthritis, rheumatoid and osteoarthritis. We looked and the cost of hip replacement surgery, joint replacement surgery for your knees, etc., and your wrists, all of which we can and do resolve now with natural holistic practices. It's in the book. The book is not on the shelf. Oh, I sold my copy yesterday. I had one copy. It was for me yesterday, and I just ordered more copies. It's in the book, The Stem Cell Regenerative Medicine Therapy. All of that information is there. You just have to follow the instructions, which I'm going to assume that you are good at following instructions. Thank you, Ed. He said, why not do both? Let me think about it. It's a lot of work. But I think you're right. I'm coming from the position that when I ask a question of someone whose opinion I trust, I'm not going to argue with him. He says, I think, why not do them both? I'm going to try, because I do want to go to Africa next month. And it's not too late. The window is not closed on it. I thought about this yesterday, and yesterday morning when I woke up, I gave up on going to Africa this time around. I was going to postpone it another month or two, maybe to October or to September. I have been invited to speak at the Festac International Festival in Ghana in late September. In October, I had been planning on leaving Ghana and going to Rwanda, and then from Rwanda to Kenya. So I still can make that trip. And run the 21-day program, which actually would begin September 1st. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show and try and see if I can set these up. I'm going to set up a 21-day reboot for those of us who already got our health care practices in place. The 21-day is a reboot. And that reboot should be a pretty good day, a pretty good thing. So on that note, I'm out of here for today. I'll be busy in the next hour or two putting together the photoshopping a promotion for the reboot and for the 56-day stem cell rejuvenation. Now, here's the problem. If I get one or two people for either of those campaigns, it's kind of like it doesn't work. Doesn't work for me. I need at least 10 people. At least 10 people to reboot. Now, if you had heard what happened to the people who do the stem cell revolution, and it's in the book, Stem Cell Revolution. Some people came by, got the book, and I know one person is doing it right now. One person is doing it from the book because I'm fixing her food. And I do know Eric and Michael, you guys came out and stayed with us here because I'm fixing the food. So there's so much that we can do. Should I get and feel optimistic? I have to. Because optimism is positive movement. Pessimism is the opposite. So I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in today to LIB Radio, LIB TV. It has been a good day, hasn't it? Today we took on a very serious subject. How much is a life worth? How much is your life worth? I invite you all to participate during our emergency. It was an emergency. August fund drive. It did hold back substantially about 2 days or so of expenses. In fact, yesterday I had a visitor, Brother Shabazz came by. And Brother Shabazz is a very wise elder. He's my elder, Baba Shabazz. He's very wise. Baba Shabazz loves me. I love him. He has been an entrepreneur all of his life, a real estate baron. He has lost more money on real estate deals than most of us would ever hope to win. But Brother Shabazz came by yesterday and gave me a simple formula. And he asked me to calculate these numbers. What are my daily average expenditures every month? He wants me to track those daily average expenditures every month. And I started thinking about them, and it's rather significant. My daily average expenditures are very high. But he said, track it, pay attention to it. And after listening to Brother Shabazz, I concluded if I could get everything to work the way it's designed to work, then I could go to Ghana in September, Rwanda in October, Kenya in October, and I could do something in Kenya that I've been wanting to do for several years, and that is consolidate my family there in Kenya. It's worth trying. It is. Ed L. Mack says $125 a week or $12 a day Sorry, 18, just a little more than one bad meal per day. And the 21 day is a good starter. And what would be the cost? $125 a week or $21 a day. That would be for the 21 day. That would be 3 weeks, $375. 3 weeks, 375. Is that what you're saying? 3 weeks for 375. Is that okay? That's the question. So let's get this party started. Let's get this party started. Let's get this party started. So that's what the plan is. I want to go to Africa next month. So I'm going to put up these promos today. This Saturday, next Saturday, no, a week from this weekend, we have our first Saturday feast. This is going to be the last first Saturday feast I'll be doing, at least for this year. Obviously, I won't be doing it if I'm out of the country. And I may end up stopping the first Saturday feast and going to something else, because the first Saturday feast for the last 3 months has cost me more to feed the people than it brought in. And that don't work. Let's do things that do work. So I'm going to put up the promo for the 56 day, and I'm going to put up the promo for the reboot. You'll be seeing those today, showing up everywhere. And for the rest of the month, that's all I'm going to be talking about. The 56-day stem cell regenerative medicine therapy and the 21-day reboot on your favorite. We aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio. We are LIB TV. We are livinginblack.com. Tell your friends to tell their friends that we have our own now. And we can be very proud of what we have and what we do with what we have on LIB Radio, LIB TV, and on livinginblack.com. Peace and prosperity to each and every one of you.